Alright, so we're going to look at IXL and characteristics of quadratic functions in the equation form. So let's go ahead and just jump right in and I'll explain as we go. Find the equation of the axis of symmetry for the parabola y is equal to x squared minus x minus 13 halves. Now if you watch the notes videos already, you will remember I asked you to go ahead and write the coefficients of each of the letters, because remember this is ax squared, bx, and c is the constant. Well, when we're using the axis of symmetry, remember it is x is equal to the opposite of the b term multiplied by 2a. So the opposite of the b term divided by 2 multiplied by the a term. So here we're just going to substitute our values. B is -1, so the opposite of that would be 1. And then 2 times 1. So our axis of symmetry would just be 1 over 2. Oh, I forgot the x equals. We'll move on. It's okay for you to see me make a mistake. All right, number 2. What is the final y-intercept of x squared plus 5? Well, if you remember, the constant is always the y-intercept. So we're just going to put 5. Number 3, find the equation of the axis of symmetry for the parabola equals y equals x squared. So this is the parent function. The a term would be 1. The b term would be 0 because there isn't one there. And the c term would also be 0. So we've got x is equal to the opposite of the b term, opposite of 0 is 0, divided by 2 times the a term, which is 2. So x is equal to 0 over 2, and any number divided into 0 is just 0. So we should write x equals 0 because this is an equation. Won't make that mistake again. Let's look at number 4. Find the y-intercept of the parabola y is equal to x squared minus 5x. Okay, there's no constant here, so it's okay to put a 0. And here is your y-intercept. Just be 0. Number 5. Find the equation of the axis of symmetry for the parabola y is equal to x squared plus x plus 1. So a is 1, b is 1, and c is 1. So we already know the formula. It's x is equal to the opposite of the b term, which would be -1, divided by 2 times the a term, which is 1. So it's x is equal to -1/2. X is equal to -1/2. We'll move on. So we've got number 6 here. Find the vertex of the parabola y is equal to x squared. Now there really isn't any math here. I'll show you the math, but if you can just remember that the quadratic, when it's in parent form, your vertex has always got to be 0, 0. But if you wanted to do the math, the way that you would do it is first you're going to start off with the axis of symmetry. So we would say our a is 1, our b is 0, and our c is 0. So we have x is equal to the opposite of b divided by 2 times a. Well, again, any number that 0 is divided by is 0. So then I would just go back and I would say, I want to find y. So I do y is equal to, x is 0, so I'm going to put 0 here, and I'm going to square it. Well, y equals 0 squared. 0 squared is just 0. So then, here is the x portion of the vertex, and here is the y portion of the vertex, and then you just write it as an ordered pair. 0, 0. Number 7, find the minimum value of the parabola y is equal to x squared minus 5x plus 7. We're going to do exactly what we did before. So A is equal to 1, B is equal to negative 5, and C is equal to 7. Well, in order to find the minimum value, we need the lowest value, meaning the second part of the ordered pair. So x is equal to the opposite of negative 5, which is 5, divided by 2 times the a term, which is 1. So x is equal to 5 halves. That's the first part. So now we go back in here and we substitute the x values. So I've got, you can turn this into 2.5 if you like. 2.5 squared minus 5 times 2.5 plus 7. Well, let's think about that. 2.5 squared. It would be 2.5 times 2.5. That's 5. Carry the 2. That's 12. 10. Carry the 1. That's 5. So it's 5, 2, 6. But we've got 2 decimal points here, so it's 6.25. So what we've got, and this math right here is for this part. So we've got y is equal to 6.25 and then negative 5 times 2.5. So 2.5 times 5, that's 12. So that would be minus 12.5 plus, I'm running out of room, 7. So 6.25 minus 12.5 is actually negative 6.25. And we're going to add 7 to that. So we know our answer is going to be positive. And if we do 7.00 minus 625, and we've got to borrow from the ones place here, make that a 6, come over here to the tens place, make that a 10, but we got to borrow from that, make it a 9, and that makes this a 10, so 10 minus 5 is 5, 9 minus 2 is 7, so our answer would be 0.75, and these can be written as proper fractions, improper fractions, or integers. Well, these aren't integers, so we know that 0.75 is 3/4, and we know that our first x term was 5 halves. So here is our vertex, but the minimum value is this 3/4, so 3/4. Now we have another question. Here we're asked to find the vertex of y equals x squared plus 8. Now, if you think about it, just off the top of your head, we know that x squared goes through 0, 0. That's the vertex. And we also learned in our prior lesson that if we could just picture this as a graph, all it did was drop down 8. So really our vertex would be 0, 8. Let's prove it. So we're going to use the axis of symmetry formula to find our x coordinate, and then we're going to use our x coordinate to substitute and find y. So the opposite, I've got my a term, which is 1, b term, which is 0, and c term, which is 8. So we've got the opposite of b, which is 0, divided by 2 times a, which is 1. Well, any number divided into 0 is 0. Then we're going to substitute 0 for x, that's squared, plus 8. Well, 0 squared is 0, plus 8 is 8, so y equals 8. So therefore, again, our vertex would be 0, 8. Right? What is the minimum value of the parabola? All right, let's go ahead and look at number 9. We're asked to find the minimum value of the parabola, which is y is equal to x squared plus 4x. Again, the minimum value is the y value of the vertex, so we're going to use our axis of symmetry equation to find our y. So we're going to say A is 1, B is 4, and C is 0. So we've got x is equal to the opposite of the b term, which is 4. So we're going to put -4 divided by 2 times 1. So x is equal to -4 divided by 2. Therefore, x is equal to -2. That is the axis of symmetry, or the equation of alignment with the x-axis. Now we're going to substitute -2 inside of the original equation to find out what our y value is. So x is -2, and we're going to square that, plus 4 times -2. So -2 times 2, or actually -2 times -2 is +4, plus 4 times -2, which is -8. So we can say 4 minus 8. Y, therefore, is -4. So the y value of our vertex is -4. Remember, the y value tells you your minimum or your max value. So we're simply going to put -4. Let's look at the next one. This would be number 10. Find the minimum value of the parabola y is equal to x squared. So again, if you get a picture of this, what's happening is you have the parent function, which is x squared, and we know that the parent function goes through 0, 0. So 0, therefore, would be our minimum. Now you can use the process that we used before with the axis of symmetry, but you would find that this is true. Our next question. Find the equation of the axis of symmetry for the parabola y is equal to -7x squared. So we've got y is equal to -7x squared. A is -7, B is 0, C is 0. So we have x, or our x value, is equal to the opposite of the b term, which is 0, that has no opposite, divided by 2 multiplied by the a term, which is -7. So x is equal to 0 divided by -14. Therefore, x is equal to 0. So the axis of symmetry is x equals 0. Our next problem says find the y-intercept of the parabola y is equal to -3x squared plus 3x. So if you think about this, A is -3, B is 3, but we didn't have a C. So since we don't have a C, we can say that C is 0. And if you also remember, the constant term is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept in this case is 0. And we have our next question. Find the vertex of the parabola y is equal to x squared minus 3x plus 9. We're going to use the axis of symmetry formula or equation to do that. So A is 1 because there's a 1 in front of the x squared term. B is -3. And C is +9. So we have x is equal to the opposite of the b term, which would be 3, divided by 2 times 1, which is 3/2. Then we're going to substitute our 3/2 inside the original equation and solve for y. So we've got 3/2 squared minus 3 times 3/2 plus 9. So 3/2 squared, this means 3/2 times 3/2, which is 9/4. And then we're going to multiply 3 or negative 3 times 3 halves. So you would do negative 3 times 3, which is 9. And there's an imaginary 1 under this negative 3 to make it into a fraction. So that gives us 2 in the denominator plus 9. Now, if you remember working with fractions, in order to add or subtract fractions, the denominators have to be the same. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to change all of these denominators to the same number. And we're going to change them to 4 because 2 is a factor of 4. So I'm going to keep the first one the same. Now, the second one is 9 halves. I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2. That gives me negative 18 over 4. And then I'm going to multiply 9 over 1 by 4 over 4. That gives me 36 over 4. So at this point I have 9 fourths minus 18 fourths plus 36 fourths. So we're going to keep our denominator the same, which is 4. And now we add and subtract the numerators as we need to. 9 minus 18 is negative 9. Negative 9 plus 36 is positive 25. Alright, so actually, this should not be 25 over 4. That's wrong. It's 27 over 4. So, the vertex of the parabola would be 3 halves, comma, 27 over 4. And I'm going to write these in instead of changing. Alright, so there you have it. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. See you on the next one.